Welcome to the Best in the Game podcast. I'm your host, Mike Jones, aka Jersey Mike. On today's episode of Best in the Game, we are reviewing the Joe Budden Podcast, episode 715, titled Two and a Possible. On this episode of the Joe Budden Podcast, they get into a lot of what's happening in hip hop right now. If you haven't noticed, it's like it's Avengers Civil War happening in hip hop right now. It seems like everybody has a side to choose, a side to pick. Rap beef is alive and well, I think. So we're gonna review a lot of the episode and things that they discuss. So really appreciate y'all coming here. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all the love and support. We hit 500 less than a week ago. We're almost close to 1,000. So y'all go ahead, keep supporting your boy. Really, really, really greatly appreciate that. Thank you. All right. First and foremost, let me get a little bit into the Joe Budden Podcast history. So Joe Budden Podcast, I am kind of a late bloomer to it. As y'all know, I've been working, doing my thing for several years. Here in the last few years, as I start to work, I really like to turn on podcasts, things of that sort, and realize, hey, Joe Budden has a podcast. Been a fan of Joe Budden's music. Definitely grew up in Jersey, North Jersey, of course. Went to school in Jersey City. Shout out to the Gothic Knights. Heard Joe Budden growing up, heard his album, really felt his music. And to be honest with you, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm a fan. I understand the lexicon and what's going on out there. A lot of people talking about he's a one-hit wonder. Well, if you listen to that first album, I believe it was self-titled Joe Budden as well too, you'll realize that's a fantastic album. It might not be a classic to, say, the entire hip-hop community, but certainly for persons that, grew up in northern New Jersey, you gotta give him the respect because he was one of those guys that made it on a major label, backed by Cole, backed by Def Jam, things of that sort. So I definitely had it in my car, definitely used to rock that out until somebody broke in my car and stole it. Shout out to Newark. Y'all know how that be. But Joe Budden Podcast, I've been listening to it here for the last few years now. I've been more so a fan of listening to Joe Budden's podcast in this iteration right now, the current crew that he has, including Melissa Ford, including Flip, things of that sort. I understand that there were episodes before that. There was a time before that. There was a time where it wasn't even called the Joe Budden Podcast. And I kind of did my homework a little bit. I went back, listened to some episodes, watched some episodes, understood where all of that was coming from. I believe at some point he also was doing his thing on Revolt TV. So, he was always a part of the culture in that way if he wasn't dropping and releasing music itself. I gotta take a moment. I gotta take a moment to address the people out there that's putting out all the Joe Budden slander. I believe the previous episode, he went in a little bit on the two artists we're going to get into here in a bit. And, apparently, the socials right now, that kind of rules the world, right? It's sort of like if you see a lot of chatter about something on social media that people sort of make that out to be the truth. Well, I'm not particularly a fan of that. I'm not particularly a fan, nor do I subscribe to the fact that, hey, if I'm scrolling on Instagram or I'm scrolling on some other social media website, that means that it's true. And a lot of times what people really need to do is get their facts straight. A lot of that stuff is opinion based, and it's unfortunate because the line is so blurred nowadays. People can't really tell or understand. But I'm just not here for the Joe Budden slander. In regards to rap beef, Joe Budden is one of those guys. He absolutely gets it. He's been there. He's done that. He's again, it's all subjective in regards to whether you thought he won or not, but he's been out there. He's done that. He's done the rap battle. So him being a, professional musician, a professional artist, him having engaged in the war that we call hip hop, the battles of hip hop, he's definitely someone who I believe people should, just sort of have a little bit of respect in regards to what it is that he's saying. If you think about it, he's held in high regard in real music circles. It's only when he says something that people don't like that they want to bash him and bring up his career, so on and so forth. But I mean, I guess that's just the game that we're in today. But the real artists fuck with him. The real musicians fuck with him until he says something bad about their project, and then they'll block him for a little bit until he says something good. But anyway, so Joe Budden, he wants to speak on the Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Drake beef that's going on right now. And first and foremost, in terms of the hip hop conversation, I'm here for it. Growing up in Jersey, real close to New York, of course, been around for all that. The Nas, Jay-Z, man, I was in college when all that was happening. Yo, you had to pick a side. You couldn't be neutral. Nobody was Switzerland. You know what I'm saying? Even going back a little bit more, Tupac and Biggie, unfortunately, we all know how that came to be and how that came to end. And it was unfortunate because, literally two of the greatest hip hop artists of our generation lost their lives in very, very, very tragic ways, of course. But that moment showed you the power of hip hop. That moment showed you that this music moved people to do physical action, and in their cases, actual physical harm, in order to sort of just stand out or have relevance of that sort. Now, no one's advocating for that. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants, rap beef to sort of jump off of the music sheet. We want to keep it on wax, people. Of course, we want to keep it on wax. We want to keep it safe. But we are here for the competition of it. We are here for the competitive sport of hip hop. I have a little bit of a different take after watching the episode again on Joe Budden Podcast, episode 715. I have a little bit of a different take than Joe Budden does. Well, kind of, sort of, not really. So in my eyes, right, I like how, if you've noticed, this hip hop story, Kendrick, J. Cole, and Drake, has been sort of like compared a lot to the Marvel Avengers, right? All these guys are just real pumped up superheroes, putting out great, fantastic music, literally moving the needle, moving the music industry. Fourth quarter catalogs, like all of that, right? These guys are the best of the best right now. We know that several weeks ago, Kendrick Lamar responded back to something that J. Cole said on the record in regards to them being a big three. Kendrick came back with the bar, "It's just big me." And to be honest with you, if you listen to that Kendrick Lamar verse, like, first and foremost, Metro and Future, like, that, they killed that. That entire album is fire, right? I'm putting that out there, even though, understandably so, apparently the entire album is, basically a shot at Drake, but I'm getting that. But that Kendrick Lamar verse on Like That, oh man, that thing was crazy. And man, he really went for it. And to be honest with you, he wasn't really shooting at Cole. He was shooting at Drake probably more than anything. I think people have pretty much come to that determination overall in the lexicon, so on and so forth. So J. Cole, as of this podcast, maybe about a week ago, he dropped the album called Might Delete Later, and we've all heard it by now. The track on there, 7-minute drill, and J. Cole, in which J. Cole responds back to Kendrick. First and foremost, a lot of the talk out there talk about, hey, the J. Cole verse was weak, all that. So I don't agree with that. I think it was an appropriate response, even though he wasn't particularly the person addressed, but it was a jab. It was a jab. If we're gonna compare it to like a sport, compare it to boxing or fighting, so on, it was a jab. He wasn't like trying to go for a haymaker. He wasn't trying to like knock him out particularly on his verse, but he did just sort of let him know, like, hey, I'm here. I'm here. J. Cole's been rapping here the last few years talking about, like, how great he is, how good he is, how he wants the number one spot. And to be honest with you, it's still up for debate in many circles, but Cole has definitely solidified himself as, like, one of those dudes. He's, like, one of the top guys. So the 7-minute drill was a jab, as we saw. And then before we get to Dreamville Fest, back to the Avengers. Me personally, if I could say, I've always kind of looked at J. Cole kind of like Thanos. You know what I mean? J. Cole, like, think about Thanos. Think about Thanos for a minute from the Avengers, right? Thanos wanted what we thought the good guys wanted. He wanted what the superheroes wanted, right? Thanos wanted peace. Thanos wanted prosperity. Thanos didn't think that he was the bad guy. He didn't think he was a bad guy. He thought he was saving humanity. He thought he was saving civilizations. He thought he was saving universes by trying to acquire all the Infinity Stones so that he could snap half of existence away so that the people who would be left behind could have all the resources and stuff and have enough resources to live and prosper, right? He was trying to save everyone. And in saving everyone, he was unbiased. Remember, he said, like, hey, it's unbiased. I'm not picking and choosing who stays. I'm just going to snap my fingers and whoever goes, goes. Whoever stays, stays. And if you stay, then prosper. As he said, he wanted to look out unto a grateful universe. Had a whole plan, whole retirement plan. Snapped his fingers, went to some other planet and started planting fucking roses and shit. You know what I'm saying? J. Cole was Thanos. J. Cole is like, yo, I'm here to save hip-hop. I'm here to save hip-hop. Whether you believe it or not. Some people might think he's the bad guy. Some people don't think he's the bad guy. Some people might think the snapping of the glove might be necessary. Some people don't. It's interesting. Think about Thanos. Think about the Avengers movies. They're showing you from the perspective of the people we call the superheroes, right? The people who are trying to save humanity, save Earth. Flip it around. Flip that camera around. What if the angle, or what if the movie was showing everything from Thanos' perspective? Thanos is saying, hey, look, I saw it on my home planet. We ran out of resources. There wasn't enough mouths for all the food. It wasn't enough. Let me save y'all. J. Cole was trying to save us. He was trying to save us from some of this bullshit music that we've been getting here the last few years. Some of these pop-up rappers, that's what they are. They pop-up rappers. Taking advantage of a beat, taking advantage of the culture. And to be honest, it happens in every genre. It's in every genre, but it's unfortunate because right now, hip-hop is at the forefront. It does appear to be the most lucrative music genre at this time. Hip-hop is everywhere. It's in your commercials. It's in your food. It's in your supermarkets when you walk in the aisles. Hip-hop is everywhere. So, like with everything else, it's going to get exploited just a little bit like everything else, right? So that means we're going to have people pop up and make music that's not that great. We're going to need people. We're going to need people like Joe Budden. We're going to need people like Envy and Charlemagne. We're going to need people like Ebro. We're going to need people like Elliott Wilson. We're going to need these people around to help identify, to say, yo, I've seen hip-hop. I've seen hip-hop grow up. Some of this is good, and some of it ain't so good. I don't think that there's a person who's a real hip hop head alive right now who's looking at J. Cole like, that wasn't it. That's not that great. J. Cole's been that guy for the last few years. One of the top guys. I don't even really feel like that's a debate. On the opposite side, you look at Drake, right? Drake is a great artist. But he's sort of like the typical villain that you would see. Like, he wants to rule the world, and he's not shy about it. He's very brash. He's very out loud. Like, yo, I'm the best. I'm the best. He says it a lot. He means it a lot. And he backs it up. He backs it up with music. He backs it up, especially with numbers. You know, when Drake come out, everybody coming out, the show is going to be sold out. He just sold out Newark. That's what Drake does. J. Cole gonna sell out too, but J. Cole is just on some like super lyrical miracle. He gonna give you bars, and he's still gonna win you over. It's crazy because we have there's some lyrical artists who are really dope. I still feel as though don't really get the props that they ever deserve. Black Thought kind of comes to mind. Common comes to mind. You know, they're recognized by their peers, but the numbers don't necessarily reflect it. They don't have Drake numbers. You know what I'm saying? Cole is there. Cole, Drake, those numbers, very similar. Very similar. So J. Cole was Thanos. He was coming to save hip hop until Dreamville Festival. Dreamville Festival, J. Cole came out and basically, you know, he already dropped the album, Might Delete Later. The single went crazy, 7-minute drill. You know, a lot of people didn't receive it. What me, I liked it. I liked the song. It was a nice jab. It was a nice comeback. It was like, hey, like, you know, you playing around, like, I'm here. I know that wasn't necessarily for me, but you, Kendrick Lamar, you are directly responding to something I said on the Drake record, or our record, Drake and I's record. So I got to address it. Drake still got to address it too, and he will. I'm sure he will. But back to Cole. Cole, Dreamville Fest, basically came out and he said that he wasn't sleeping well since he put the record out. He said he was going to pull it from streaming services, and like he was basically like it was almost the equivalent of bowing out. It was almost the equivalent of bowing out of a beef, right? And there's some people that are out there, they're like, hey man, like we get it, we understand, you are a great human, all that, right? The problem is, J. Cole, that just don't line up with the essence of hip hop. Hip hop was born from the streets. It was born out of controversy somewhat. It was born out of competition, of course. And you're going to have some hip hop heads that just don't agree with that. And I'm sure you know that. You said it yourself up on that stage. You're like, I think you said something alluded to like, yo, his man was telling him, nah, don't do that and all that. Like, shout out to Cole. He gave props to Kendrick Lamar. Of course, Kendrick Lamar is great. Has been like one of the most renowned artists out recently. That last album, Mr. Big Stuff, like, yo, I liked it. It was dope. It didn't have the commercial success that some of his previous work had, but yo, it was dope. Gave Kendrick Lamar his props. What I don't agree with, similar to Joe Budden, he also didn't like he put it out there. He told him like, hey man, take it on the chin, man. Like you go ahead and give it to me on the chin. Give me your best shot. You know what I mean? Like my spirit all of this don't line up with my spirit. And, you know, Cole, it's cool if it don't line up with your spirit, but here's the problem, bro. Here's the problem. You already dropped the record. You already dropped the record. You already dropped the record, Cole. If you didn't put out the record, of course, if you didn't put out the record, you wouldn't have had to make that statement. Also, if you didn't put out the record, you could have just been sort of like in your quiet bag. You know, we would have alluded to what J. Cole could do to somebody on a diss track. You know what I'm saying? I have no doubt that it's in you. I have no doubt that it's in you. Even when I was listening to 7-Minute Drill, I was kind of like, man, he really was a little, it felt a little bit like a pullback, which he later confirmed too. He was like, yo, that's my boy. That's my homie. That's my friend. I didn't even really want to go in on him like that. And it's kind of evident. You can hear it now. I could hear it before he even said that at Drillville Fest, but now I could really hear it. And now part of the problem too is, Cole, you make that, I agree with Joe, you make that Kendrick verse on Like That shit go hard. That shit sound even harder now. It does. It sounds different. It sounds like Kendrick on his Napoleon shit. He's short, but he about to take over the goddamn world. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was fire. It was fire already, but now you just threw a couple logs on there now, Cole. Ironically, Cole, logs on the fire. So I'm listening to the Joe Budden episode, and they're giving J. Cole the business. They're giving him the business. They're letting him know, like, hey, man, this is everything against hip-hop, so on and so forth. I guess I kind of agree with them, just not to the extent. Like, if Joe Budden and his crew, they don't like what Cole did, and let's just say, like, that was level 10, I'm more like a level 6.5. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of it. I had that adult shit in me too, so I kind of understand, like really wanting to be in your personal peaceful space, right? But what you do professionally is consumed by the public. It's consumed by the public. And although music is art, it's not directly like artwork. It's not like artwork that you hang on your wall per se, right? Like artwork that you hang on your wall, like if someone is selling a piece of art, a Basquiat, let's say, for like $1 million to hang on the wall, somebody's gonna look at that Basquiat and be like, yo, that's $1 million for real? I wouldn't buy that. But someone else might look at that and be like, man, I see $10 million up there, and you only selling it for $1 million? Yeah, give me that. Right? So that's one way in which artists consume. But music, especially hip hop, is consumed in a very different way. A very different way. Cole, we've been listening to you and believing you when you've been on records these last few years telling us that you're the best and can't nobody stand with you. It was even argued that you was going at Drake on First Person Shooter. Me personally, I do believe you out-rap Drake on First Person Shooter. I believe it. I believe it. That last verse Drake had on there, I mean, I'm be honest, I cut the song off after your verse, Cole. That last verse he had on there is like, well, okay. Okay. Everybody's probably seeing a lot of the memes out where it's like, I'm about to, you know, yeah, you about to do what? Cole already loaded the verse. The studio's melted down. You can't even pick up the microphone right now. I'm not saying Drake is not capable. Of course Drake is capable. Of course, I can't wait to hear Drake's response to all of this. Because right now, all these dudes is at war on music. All music, not the streets, but warring on the music. I watched the Joe Budden podcast. I really liked it. I want to address something. One of the previous episodes, I believe they was also talking about this. Ish on there. I watch a lot of sports, and Ish said that Tim Duncan is not a killer. Most of y'all sports fans out there, y'all probably know Tim Duncan, Hall of Famer, all those years in San Antonio under Popovich. Also came in the game under another Hall of Famer, David Robinson. I gotta disagree with you on that, Ish. I gotta disagree with you on that. Tim Duncan absolutely positively was a killer. It's kind of crazy, like, so been listening to hip hop most of my life. I actually got away from hip hop for a little while just because the music wasn't hitting the way it was. Especially around that time, the mid 2000s, a lot of that snap rap, snap pop. The South definitely had taken over hip hop, and I really started to come back to it once like that New York element started to mix in. You started to see a lot of collaborations with Southern artists and like artists from the tri-state, from New York, from LA, things of that sort. But I always been a sports fan. Always been a sports fan. Yeah, you want to know who Tim Duncan is? Ish? Tim Duncan. You ever seen the movie No Country for Old Men? You ever see the movie No Country for Old Men? And the guy that's going around, he was hired by the cartel to go get the money back. And he was just killing everybody. Barely spoke a word, barely spoke a lick of anything. You look at him the wrong way and he killed you. He had that little shit that they used to kill cows on the farm all peacefully or whatever. That's who Tim Duncan was. Tim Duncan absolutely positively was a killer. No Country for Old Men. Ask Boogie Cousins. Ask Boogie Cousins. Boogie Cousins gave a story. I think he was speaking to Rachel Nichols about Tim Duncan and going up against him, and he thought he was having a great night, and he got some shot up against Tim Duncan, and he spoke some words, and Tim Duncan just gave him the look. Tim Duncan just looked at him. Everybody know. Anybody watch sports, anybody watch San Antonio, they know that look Tim Duncan gave. His eyes get wide. Like, oh, that's what we doing? That's what we doing? You know, veteran. Tim Duncan played 20 years, almost 20 years. Like, leave it up to a young dude to motivate the old head, right? Tim Duncan went out there and killed him. Killed him. Quietly, softly. How many times you watched Tim Duncan and he finished with like 30 and 10 and 2 blocks? The game go by so smoothly, you don't even know. You don't even know. You look up, you're like, oh, shit. Oh, shit. Ish, don't say Tim Duncan is not a killer. Tim Duncan absolutely was a killer. Ask LeBron. Ask LeBron. Tim Duncan got LeBron twice. That championship against the Cavs. You ever see that clip? Tim Duncan woke up to a young LeBron like, hey, appreciate you letting us have this one. He was playing with them Cavs, man. Playing with them Cavs. Then the second matchup against the Miami Heat, Miami Heat beat San Antonio in the championship the year before. Had to see him again. Tim Duncan's like, nah, buddy. Not again. Not 2 years in a row. by all means, it's Tim Duncan was not Kobe, but if you remember, for a long time, Kobe wasn't Kobe either. Kobe really grew into that mentality. He had to after Shaq left. And he exuded it, right? No friends, none of that. It's a lot of people that say Tim Duncan was the same way. Don't say Tim Duncan's not a killer. Just wanted to address that real quick. That was something that kind of stuck with me from the previous pod episode. But back to Joe Budden Podcast, episode 715. This episode, I really enjoyed it. I did feel like the conversation was, they drew it out a little bit longer. They drew it out so long. I was kind of like, man, I'm surprised this isn't like a Patreon episode. I'm not subscribed to the Patreon, not yet, but I understand what it is that they're doing over there. Like, they have real deep conversations, and it's a lot of industry people who care about these conversations. So you young people out there who trying to get at Joe and his crew and talk about his career, like, I personally think like y'all can learn something. I personally think that y'all can learn something. Because you got to imagine, right? If what he and his crew was saying wasn't important, why are they here? How were they here? They just did episode 715, 715. I really enjoy listening to the show because they actually give a lot of game about podcasts and things of that sort as I'm venturing into this myself. And they're not lying about a lot of this. It's hard to get to 10 episodes and then do another 10 and then do another 10. And shit, you can have 300 episodes, but if don't nobody give a fuck about what you're talking about, how successful are you? It's real easy for people to pick up that phone and criticize behind some letters, behind some typing, behind some autocorrect. Just because that shit ain't in your fucking social timeline, that don't mean that ain't nothing happened. That's the thing about some younger people nowadays that really kind of get me personally. You got the world in your hand, in your phone. If you don't know something about something, just look it up. Look it up. Y'all said he didn't know nothing about no rap beef. Look it up. Google Joe Budden rap beef. I remember him versus Game. I remember him versus Drake, which was more recent. I'm gonna tell you right now, to be honest with you, it was fire, but the only problem is it's past his time. It was past his music time. So the receiving of it by younger people, we talking about against Drake, like that just wasn't the case. But real hip hop heads know, real lyricists know. Somebody like J. Cole, I wouldn't be surprised if J. Cole sent the message to Joe Budden like, yo, that was a hell of a shot. Personal message. Not because everything ain't for your fucking Twitter wall. Everything ain't for your Instagram scroll or your Facebook page or whatever. But y'all literally have history in your grasp. The ability to go back to the past, but y'all want to live on your socials, which is just showing you what if it's like, if it didn't happen today or yesterday, then it didn't happen. Okay. All right. So y'all just said fuck history class, huh? Y'all just said fuck history class? Fuck it. Respectfully, y'all, hip hop is 50 years old. 50. That shit is young compared to a lot of these other genres. You don't even got to go that far back to get some real fucking information. To see how real rap beef is supposed to go. Minus the physical violence. We don't need that. We don't need nobody dying. We don't need nobody physically getting hurt. Let's keep it on wax. but it wasn't that long ago. Shout out to the Joe Budden Podcast. Really enjoyed the episode. Really enjoyed the Ben Staples conversation as well too. He offered some insight into the music game, things of that sort. To that part, I'm gonna say Ben Staples. That's not just their music. That's not just the music that they doing all the hiding stuff. Like the example that comes to my mind is like all of this stuff where it's like y'all doing stuff and y'all making it out to be normal, and it's not normal. It's not okay. It's not okay for the fucking FDA to approve lab-grown meat, yo. How you gonna change the definition of meat? Now I don't know if this damn steak came from a cow, or where the fuck did it come from? In the music business, all the splits, people not knowing what the splits are, people not treating the hip hop artists in that way. People will get away with what they can get away with. We're gonna need people like Ben Staples to highlight, especially in music, like, yo, stuff need to change. Stuff need to change. Alicia Keys, I remember her vividly. She was on the Breakfast Club a couple years ago saying the same thing. Stuff need to change. These splits, like how I'm the talent, how I'm the artist, but the lawyer and the agent getting all the money. It's not even just the labels no more. The labels, you know, they used to front the money. Okay, cool. It's a loan basically, but how the hell all these, how I'm the talent, how I'm the one out in front and I'm only getting a little bit of the money. They're doing it in everything. Even in Congress, getting bills passed and approved and got all this other garbage in the bill that, and we realize like, oh shit, this 10 years later, like, oh shit, vehicles can't have gas. Okay, y'all gonna give us electric cars? Because I'm not buying that shit. I'm not buying an electric car. Nah, I like gas. I get it. I'll pay the gas. So appreciate Ben Staples for that conversation. Joe Budden Podcast, I will continue to watch. I will continue to consume. Appreciate what you're doing for the industry, bro. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all watching this podcast, and I will see y'all next time. Love, peace, hair grease. Later.